How are we all doing, everyone? I've got to make sure that fits somewhere in there. So we are back in the fish room upstairs, which feels like forever since I filmed up here because we've built the new fish garage, but everything has been doing well up here and I've been slowly moving fish from up here to downstairs in different projects. But we've still got the cold water tank up here, we've still got the Hypancistrus tank up here, and I want to add a tank for some really cool and rare catfish today. Now recently I had the honour of being invited to a, well, fish keeping event called Fishfete, which is normally held in the sort of Bristol and Gloucester area, so not a million miles away from me, to be fair. And whilst I was there, I met up with a guy I've been chatting to for quite some time now, Wild Shrimp, and he breeds some absolutely amazing fish. We bumped into each other at different shops and different shows, but this time he was there with one of his stands with all his fish and botanicals and just all sorts of amazing stuff. And he was really kind and said he wanted to gift me two L236, which is the L number. I'll probably get into that in a minute if you don't know what an L number is. L236 super white Hypancistrus, which are a fish that has been on my bucket list forever. Now, as I say, I've been talking to Wild Shrimp for quite some time regarding these and quite a few other fish that he breeds, and one of the reasons I'm really excited to get these little fish in my collection, well, they're already in my collection, they're downstairs in quarantine, but one reason is they actually belong to the same family group as the mythical, I don't mean mythical, I was going to say mythical, let's go legendary. They belong to the same family group as the legendary zebra pleco that a lot of fish keepers strive to keep. They are just a gorgeous fish, and I will add them to my collection one day. I've kept them in the shop before, but these guys are a great starting point. And one thing that happens with a lot of the sort of catfish, suckermouth, pleco species, especially the Hypancistrus, is they sort of get put in the wrong, I don't want to say habitat, but when you think of an Amazonian tank, you think of black water, you think of tea-stained waters, you think of these murky rivers, and that actually couldn't be further from the truth for these little fish. Now, I've actually just clipped this light onto the tank so we can actually see what we're doing while we're scaping. That light is not going to stay on here forever because, well, I think they're going to prefer a little bit more subdued lighting. They're not going to want a big LED above their heads because, as I say, when you think of the Amazon and when you think of those Amazonian fish, you think of black waters, you think of tea-stained waters, you think of bright fish sort of swimming through those murky waters. And most, if not all, of the Hypancistrus group, I can't say all because I haven't researched them all, but the majority of them actually come from fast-moving waters, quite rich in oxygen, lots of rockwork, and normally a little bit warmer. And that's where a lot of people get it wrong. They set up a South American tank and they add all of these catfish to it, and some of them aren't actually from that style of habitat. And it's not that you need to replicate them because these 236s will never have seen an Amazonian river in their lives. But if you want your fish to thrive, sometimes, if not all the time, you do want to go and research them and make sure you are giving them the correct style of aquarium. So that is what we're going to try and replicate or vaguely recreate in here. One thing to think about when looking at a lot of these types of catfish, and again, there are thousands of species, so it's not one rule for all, and when you're trying to mix lots into a tank, it may not work for territorial disputes, the type of water they're from. Some of them might like black water and loads of leaf litter to rummage through. Other ones come from fast-moving waters where, well, if you don't replicate that, they might not get enough oxygen. But anyway, I digress. This is my Hypancistrus tank that we set up a fair few months ago, and there's a few fish in here now that weren't in here originally because, well, in all honesty, one of my friends shut down their aquarium and they asked if I had space, and duh, I have like 30 tanks. So we have currently got these guys in here until we sort out a new tank for them. But one important thing for a Hypancistrus tank is a powerful filter. Now, because I knew I was going to be getting around to building a tank for these little fish, or at least a grow-on tank for these little fish, I planned ahead. Now, in behind this big plant here is the actual filter that runs this aquarium, and that's just a little internal power filter. In that corner, I have my Awazi BioPlus Thermo 100. So it's got a filter built into the back, and it has also got a really cool, if I can lift it up, spray bar feature on it. I think I might get wet if I do this. Which should, hopefully, pardon the noise, supply enough flow. Now, most internal power filters will give you enough flow. As long as they're rated for your size of aquarium, they should be absolutely fine. Again, a lot of these fish aren't taken from the wild. A lot of them are being bred in captivity now. So I've even seen breeders actually breeding them with just air-powered sponge filters in the back and hang-on-the-back filters. But for this tank, I do want to try and replicate them and get the knowledge out there, I suppose, of where they would have originally come from and what they would normally live on, because I do think it's important. As with most catfish species, they like to mooch around on the bottom and dig through the substrate. So this is just a fine aquarium sand that I already had in this tank, and it is nothing exciting. It's just a bag of fine aquarium sand. On top of this, we are going to add some cobbles. If you're going for that high flow tank though, you might need to mix some other gravels or some bigger grades of sand in to stop it actually lifting into the water, because that can be a problem with this. And it's, to be honest, it's a little bit thicker than play sand, but it's why I don't use play sand, because I've had so many troubles with actually bringing it up into the water and making your tank look cloudy. But next step, we need some cobbles to give it that riverbed look. Now, when it comes to Hardscape, I am a little bit of a hoarder, and, well, to be honest, I do all this in my house, so there's not much space to keep it. So you might notice some nice Sirius stone hidden under the ferns there. But, well, where else do I keep it? But we don't want Sirius, that's not the right stone for this. We want riverbed style. So these cobbles that I've got in here are going to be absolutely ideal. We've got loads of different sizes, loads of different grades. So that is going to make it look proper riverbeddy. And there is nothing exciting about these. They are just garden centre cobbles. And actually, I think, yeah, they actually say fish friendly on them. Obviously, I'd always check and make sure none of them are like really sandy or look like they're going to fall apart when you wash them. But something like this will give us the riverbed vibe that we're going for. Now, some Hardscape I do get away without washing, but these being from a garden centre are not the cleanest of rocks. So we are going to give them all a rinse off, which will take me, I don't know, 20-30 minutes, and then I'll carry them upstairs. So yeah, let's crack on and get these cleaned up. So we have one pile of nice cleaned rocks. There are some absolute stunning colours in here, and all of them look like proper like cobbles. None of them are really sandstony and none of them are falling apart, but it is definitely why we wash our Hardscape first. Don't you agree, Mr. Slug? Oh, you can't see him, he's just there. But yeah, we would have had a slug and all of that sludge in our fish tank, which wouldn't have got us off to the best start. But that pile there, pretty much what I want to replicate in the tank upstairs, plus a little bit of wood. Oh my word, that bucket, oh, is so heavy. Right, we've got our cobbles, and I've also managed to cobble together, get it? Oh, so awful. It'll stay in though. What am I talking about? Wood. So we have managed to grab some wood out of the back of my cichlid pond downstairs. So this I've just had soaking in there and essentially maturing because, well, all the bacterias and all the different biofilms and stuff that is going to be living on this wood is going to be ideal to start maturing this tank. As much as where they come from in the wild wouldn't have that much wood, not a great deal. It might have a bit of vegetation and a bit of wood. Most of the time it's quite rocky, but we can use these as extra hiding spaces and places for them just to get away from each other. So I don't want these in my hands. I'm gonna have to find somewhere that is dry or can catch water, and then we'll start putting cobbles in. So one thing I've got to think about is that filter. Now I reckon if we don't build any further back than there, we should be good. And I think we'll go with a big group of these larger cobbles on the bottom, and then I'm hoping to be able to build up some caves and some different areas for them to hide in, and then maybe a banked up sort of beach area on that side with similar cobbles. Loads of nooks and crannies, loads of areas for them to hide away because, well, that's what they like to do. So I think what we're going to do is we're just going to use a load of the cobbles to start building up some areas that they can hide in. This might not be the finished article, but we will probably get some glue on these to give them a bit more rigidity. But if we can just start stacking, we can then get some of the wood in here, and we can hopefully build some sort of, I don't know, riverbed cave system for these catfish to live in. We're getting some sort of cave system going. And these pebbles normally are a pain in the backside to use because using pebbles normally means they're obviously very rounded and very hard to get to lock together. But so far, we've actually done quite well. Now I'm thinking building some other sort of cave over here. I'm running out of bigger pebbles. I should have bought an extra bag of bigger pebbles, but I think we'll be okay if we can start building up some different shapes. So I've got to remember, we've got some wood to go in here as well, but I think we're getting there. I think we'll bring the cave sort of around the corner a little bit. Hopefully, those are two very rounded pebbles. I know there's an indent on that one. Look at that. So, I don't know if you'll be able to see this, but on this one, you can see there's a funny sort of indent to this top rock, which sits perfectly on the other rounded one and actually makes it not proper secure, but way more secure than trying to put two round ones together. I think we're getting there. We need to add some smaller ones in because at the moment it looks like, I don't know, maybe like a cartoon caveman Flintstones sort of theme, but we're getting somewhere. Now we will start adding some smaller stuff. Obviously, because these catfish are basically bottom dwellers, they don't really go much up into the top reaches of the aquarium. So by giving them lots of extra hiding spaces and bits of gravel around the bottom, that's going to maximise our amount of space for them to hide away and not see them ever again. But as long as the fish are happy, that's all that matters to me, to be honest. I like these as well. If we can get some of these ones that are broken placed down into the substrate, just makes them look like they're popping out of the sand. Might give it a bit of a deeper sand bed as well, just to hide some of the bases of these rocks. A few more pebbles, and then I think we'll break the glue out and start making this some sort of solid structure. I'm just going to block off the backs of those, because otherwise it looks a bit weird that you can see through them. It looks like a Stonehenge thing going on at the moment. Yeah, I think we're looking good. Maybe one bigger one over the top of them. I don't know, maybe I'll just knock that one straight into the sand. Oh, it's all gone wrong. Didn't like that one there anyway. Let's place that one on top. Again, the more nooks and crannies and the more crevices we've got, the more it'll feel like home. Well, sort of to them. Not that they've ever seen the Amazon. I think we might add a couple in the middle as well. Again, breaks up line of sight, gives them something else to hunt around and search for their food. But I think then we'll be done for rocks for the minute, but I do think we need to use some glue. Now the reason for sticking these rocks together is just to make sure that when these catfish start digging and burrowing, and like I say, they're only juveniles, this is not their forever home, this is, well, essentially their second quarantine tank while they grow up. But if they start digging, those rocks could fall down on them, it could damage them. It is always better to be safe than sorry. So we're just going to chuck a few blobs of cyanoacrylate glue, this is the one from Moss UK, underneath each pebble, stick it down. Simple as that. It's really not that difficult. When I don't include this in a video, I get loads of questions. What glue did you use? Cyanoacrylate glue. So if you can't get Moss UK glue where you are, have a look at Gorilla Glue, gel cyanoacrylate glues, yeah, all of those sorts of things. But I've been using this stuff for ages and it goes off really, really well. But, well, I'll show you one or two and then I'll just crack on and do them all. Let me show you how I do it. So I'm not too bothered about these little ones in the bottom, but like this one up here where it's sat on top of those rocks. I know roughly it's a spot there and then another spot over there. I can see where it's been touching each other. We can then pop that rock back down on those two gluing points, check that it's touching, and that will go off. It is easier if they're dry, but they do still go off if they are wet. Right, one down, 5 or 6 to go. I'll bring you all back when I've finished. We are back and we are finished. So you can go through and give everything a bit of a tap test. Obviously your fish in theory won't do any more than that unless you've got a really big fish. But yeah, all of those rocks are now solid so we can do some of the woodwork because at the moment it's very low. That's fine for the fish that are going in here. They're not actually going to use top, I don't know, 3/4, 2/3 of the aquarium. But I do want to bring it up and some structure up to, well, make it more visually appealing for us. One thing that actually I haven't mentioned that you can do with glue, just grab a little bit of your sand and chuck it into the gap where the glue is, and it will just sort of disguise the glue, as it were. That's what I've done, and that's why the rocks are now covered in sand. But let's get some wood in to try and get some structure up into the aquarium. So what am I thinking? The main flow is going to come from that way, so probably some bigger bits to vaguely disguise the filter, but this isn't really a show tank. This is a purposeful tank. This is a tank that is going to house these little chaps until they are big enough to go in the next aquarium. So yeah, I think bigger pieces over there, smaller pieces this side. Let's have a look. I think if we can get them to reach up into the top of this aquarium, and again, we'll put a few blobs of glue on them, just add something a little bit taller. Looks like some old broken down trees that have washed down river. Yeah, I think we'll go with that. And I reckon if we can get another bit in alongside it, I want it to sort of mimic that other bit and look like it's part of the same structure. Yeah, like that. Now, you don't have to be overly careful about what bits you're using, and it might be quite tricky for you all to see what I'm doing, but again, I'm just trying to make it so that it's visually pleasing to the eye and also going to provide a decent home for these little dudes to live in. Something like that. Yeah, I think that's looking cool. We don't have to be particular, I just want some structure. And then lastly, we've got the bigger one that will be in front of the filter, and I need to make sure that this one is not too far back so it doesn't bother the filter. Oh, that sits quite nicely there. I've only got one tiny bit left. Okay, yeah, we've got like spike, 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 spike. So let's try and do spike, spike on this one. I think we might need to glue this one properly because there's no gap to wedge it in. Oh, hang on. No. No, this one is going to have to definitely be glued to get the right sort of look that I want. Okay. Yeah, it's that. That's what I want. Why is my dog shouting? Sounds like there might be a delivery. Okay, glue. Let's get the glue in. So again, it's nothing too exciting. I am just finding the contact points where the rock meets the wood and blobbing a little bit of glue down inside it. And then that will go off rock solid. A little bit of sand. And that one is glued. Now this is going to be the tricky one because actually, let's let that one go off, because then once that one's gone off, I can glue that one to that one. Let's blob some glue on these ones, and then I'll bring you back. So yeah, you know the drill by now. Blob, 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 glue, done, stuck in. Well, next step then. Don't know where we're at. So that is everything glued, and the last touch for this tank is a tiny bit of scatter gravel. Again, it's just to blend those rocks down from the bigger ones down to the sandy substrate. Gives them something to hunt through and sort of work through. I'm trying to make this tank aesthetically pleasing, but also functional for these fish. And do you know what? I think we're going to have to go down and get some stones that are going to go between these two, because at the moment it goes from, like, well, for want of a better word, medium to small. And I want it to go from medium to a little bit less medium, a little bit less medium, and then small. So I think another couple of little handfuls of them to mix into the sand, and then we'll just go and grab, I don't know, 50p piece size, that sort of size, just 5 or 6 to go in here. Brings the levelling down. And these are exactly what I am talking about. We've got different grades of gravel and pebble, and I have got nowhere to put these. Please let me be able to open up this shelf. Oh, right, let's get those placed. Now again, I don't want to be overly particular about where these are going. We're just going to wedge a few. Oh, try not to smash the glass in the process. Oh yeah, that looks so much better. That one's a bit big. Let's get some of these small ones in. Yeah, a few more down there. And once the water's in and once the fish are in, they'll not necessarily move them about, but they will make this place their own. One down in that corner. I say that I'm not being overly particular about this, but evidently I am a little bit. I just want to give it that natural riverbed vibe. Is that looking it? I think we're good. Just a few more little ones. A few more there. That can go there. Right, now with everything glued, scatter stones in, wood and rock in, All that is left to do is fill it. Hopefully gently, rather than that absolute jet wash that was going to happen. That's pretty much it. I'll bring you all back in a second, because obviously I've got to move the filter from that tank into this tank, and obviously make sure the water is dechlorinated and all of that stuff. So give me 20 minutes, I'll fill this up. It'll be 5 seconds for you, but I'll bring you back in a sec. So we are finished topping up. Oh, blasting a bit of sand out there. Yeah, we are done. Now, I need to do two things, which, let's do the first one first. We're going to dose Optimus and Satus in here. This will make sure our tap water is all safe and ready to go. Now, the reason I want to do this, not that it will make that much of a difference, but I am going to obviously be putting a mature filter from the tank next door into here. So I want to make sure that this water is safe for that. And put a bit of bacteria in there as well. So I'll just jet that once more, and that will give the Optimus and Satus a bit of a mix. I'm going to dose some more Satus, but for the 2.5 mil that needs to go in here, I'm just going to dose it. And I should be able to just lift this filter out of here and drop it straight in to that tank. Famous last words. Don't get water on anything that doesn't want water on it. Hopefully we left enough space. Is there anyone living behind here? No, good. Right. That can go. Oh, we left a good amount of space for that filter. That's perfect. Now let's flick that filter back on. And in theory, we are done. Actually, I told a lie. There's one or two more things to do. So one of which is actually to check the heater. Now, I might have already mentioned it in this video, but a lot of catfish species are actually kept in the wrong temperatures. These little ones that I've got can go anywhere up to about 28, 29, even 30 degrees Celsius in some cases that I've read about. And they do really well at it. They actually prefer warmer water, and the same as the zebra plecos, and that's why it's not always ideal to mix them with other species, because, well, the tank might just not be warm enough for them. So the heater on this one is built into the back of this filter and is set to not hot enough. It is set currently to 24. So let's get that one back in. We will set it up to 28. Click that one back down in there. Do we want the spray bar on, or do we want the nozzle on? I reckon the spray bar is going to be better, isn't it? That pushes water all the way around the tank then. Lastly, I think we're on the lid. So if we get rid of the bright light on that one, that sorts that out. I do want to use these lights on a future project. I really want to do like a full-on planted tank with them. Get back to where I started in the shop. Lid. Now this will be a slightly dimmer light, but more than likely will be preferred by these catfish because, well, they don't like it bright and in your face. I'll have to sort out those cables for the filter in a second to make sure they go through the gap. Ah, there's one coming out the side. Of course there would be. There we go. And where's my switch gone? Now this is just an on and off switch, but what we will do is we'll put a Wi-Fi timer on this so that I don't have to remember to turn the lights on. Much, much duller, much nicer for them. Obviously where they'd be living in the deep crevices and canyons of these rivers, it's not going to be blinding bright all day long. So I'm hoping this subdued lighting will bring them out and make them feel a little bit confident. So we're done. I'm not sure on plants yet. I've not made up my mind, but the light's getting darker outside. I've got some other jobs to do and finish off actually fish keeping today because everyone needs feeding before I finish up for the day. And yeah, I've just got to decide whether we go plants. Maybe a few epiphytes. I don't know, maybe some fast growing stems to help me keep the nutrient levels down. I'll live with the tank for a few days and then I'll bring you all back when I decide what I'm going to do. So see you in a couple of seconds. Welcome back to the fish room and the Hypancistrus Grow On River tank. don't know what I'm calling it, but that's what we're going with for this part of the video. I can't even remember what I called it in the last bit of the video, which was quite some time ago now. So we have had a few issues that I think it is important to discuss in this last bit. I say last bit, there's still a bit to go. I want to get the plants in here and we still got to get the fish in here, but there is an issue that I have had that I think is important to discuss. But first I want to get some plants in here and I want to discuss my thoughts. There was 2 avenues I was going to go, and I want to discuss them both with you and see what your thoughts are in the comments. But I'm going with the one that I think makes the most sense. Now, the first thought was to actually just do what we've got here. Keep it as wood and rocks, because that's probably very similar to their sort of native environment. From what I can read, there's not a great deal of vegetation. There's not really even a great deal of wood in some cases, but yeah, that was the first thought, was to keep it like that. And downstairs, I actually have some Colombian ramshorn snails. Now, some of you may already know this because I have gone on about them for a while, but they are thugs. I had them in the big tank downstairs and they started demolishing plants. That was a mistake. I just introduced them as little babies without realising they were Colombian ramshorns and not normal ramshorns. Anyway, I digress. Let's not go into that. But they do eat plants, these Colombian ramshorns, and they pretty much eat any plant. I've been putting cuttings in there from different species. They've even stripped my Anubias leaves off and started eating the rhizome of the Anubias. So these ramshorns are insane. And I thought that'd be quite cool, actually. Group of Colombian ramshorns in here, the couple of catfish that I've got, proper Amazonian, like no plant, just hardscape. But then I was like, cleaning's going to be a bit of a nightmare. And there's 2 options. Obviously, the Colombian ramshorns will do really well with cleaning up uneaten food. So that's a good thing. But the plants will help me keep nutrients down. Even if they're not fast-growing plants, they're going to help with that just whole aquarium ecosystem. So we've decided not to put the Colombian ramshorns, and we're going to do their own tank at some point. I just don't know what yet. They're currently living in a tank and they're happy, so let's leave them there. But I do want to do their own hardscape only Colombian snail tank. But in this tank, I've got some cool plants to put in. Now, those cool plants are one of my favourite Anubias species that I don't get very often, and that is Anubias Coffeefolia. Now, I believe, obviously, that the name Coffeefolia comes from actually the ridges and the sort of shape of the leaves resembling a coffee plant. Now, I've had these for a few weeks, so there's a few little holes in the leaves where I've had them in a sort of quarantine tank. More on quarantine tanks and problems in a minute. But I think if we get these glued to rocks, we can just dot them in. And yeah, they should deal with the hotter temperature. I've read that they can go up to 28, but we'll have to keep a close eye on them to make sure they don't start melting. Now, I did leave the bag of gravel and chippings the other day up here. So we've still got, that's a bit small, but we've still got a few rocks that we can use. Yeah, I might need to find a couple more, but maybe we can just glue some of these small ones on and weigh the plants down, because then if I do have any problems with them starting to melt, I can get them out and move them to another tank. Now, I'm sure most of you have done this before, but if you're coming from a new place in fish keeping, all you need to do, get all this rock wool off, strip it all off, make sure that the plant is clean from the roots, because Anubias being epiphyte plants, they don't need to be planted into the soil. If you actually plant them in soil or into the sand and you bury this central root, that root will rot. So we are just going to get all of that off. Now, I'll clean that off properly in a second. That's most of it off. And then all we are going to be doing is using a touch of glue. So this is a cyanoacrylate glue that's safe underwater for all fish. And we are just going to be then gluing that Anubias to that rock. And once we've done that with all 6 of them, we can just plop them into the aquarium in different areas and get them situated. So leave me for 10, 15, 20 minutes. There's a whole video on epiphyte plants on the channel if you want to go and see how to do this properly. There's also a whole video on planting in general. So rather than boring you all with this, I will bring you back in a couple of seconds. So I just brought you back for the last one. We've had to resort to using some rougher, sort of more stony rock rather than pebbles, but just a blob of glue on there. Chuck that Anubias on there, hold it for a few seconds, and then that will be glued. All the other ones are glued, so we just need to get them into the tank. Is that stuck yet? There we go, done. Right, planting time. So the other thing I wanted to sort of not discuss, just tell you all, obviously the lights are off in the tanks around us, and that is just because it is early and the fish haven't hit their timers yet on the lighting, so they won't start lighting up. And I thought about turning them on, but I don't know. It's hard because I don't want to disrupt their natural light cycle. They know when the lights are coming on. They know when daylight hits. I come and open the blinds for them. So I don't really want to mess around with their daylight cycle just for the sake of a YouTube video. I think that one is a prime candidate to be wedged back there already, look. Now, like I say, the good thing with wedging these onto, not wedging, gluing these onto some rocks is we can just go along and sort of find little gaps where the plant sort of sits, and the rock and the glue will sort of all hold it vaguely in place. We could glue this straight to that rock underneath, but then I wouldn't be able to remove them if I ever wanted to. And then we've got our big double one, which I think we're just going to pop that in back there maybe. So we've got a nice little clump of them in the middle. And then, I don't know, it's not really an aquascape, is it? This is more for the fish than it is for anything else. One in there. We've got one spare. Where are we going? I'd like to come back over here, actually. Yeah, and I think this one can go down here. A bit more on the sand bed, poking up over the rock. I think that looks good. Let me show you. Reflections in this room, because it is very bright outside, is quite bad. But overall, I think that looks cool. So now I can discuss what problem we had. Now, the reason this tank has taken a tiny bit longer to come to fruition is that I was actually going to place some dither fish into here. So I was thinking some tetras or something schooling around in the top. I don't know, you know, something along those lines. The problem is you don't want it to be big and bulky so that it like scares these catfish, because these catfish are quite timid and quite shy. You won't see them at the best of times, especially once we put them in here. They are going to be quite hard to see. So I didn't want anything big, and I was thinking, oh, cardinal tetras would be a nice one. So, well, let's go down to the fish garage and I'll show you what exactly is going on. So you will have to excuse the state of this tank because I have had to rip it apart several times over the last week. But like I say, I feel like it is good to be honest, and this whole channel is about education and teaching people about the products I use and things I come into contact with through the hobby, and the bad times as well. So in this quarantine tank, one of many that we run in the house, you might be able to hear a couple others bubbling away below us because there's some in the cupboard as well, is a group of cardinal tetras. Now, I was driving past a shop a few weeks ago, maybe a week ago, and I've never been in there before. Drove past it, thought, you know what, I'll pop in, see what they've got. Little, you know, garden centre sort of jobby. And yeah, they had cardinal tetras at a decent price. I was like, you know what, I'll get a group of them. And I've never used this shop before, and through no fault of their own, the fish were quarantined, that's what the label said, so on, so on. They have broken out in some sort of hideous bacterial infection. Now, we got rid of most of the ones with the bacterial infection, but I'm actually seeing one now that's got a saddle on his back that is looking like a bacterial infection, but it might be a parasitic infection. But anyway, what has happened then? First, we got the bacterial infection where the body started going white and yeah, fish started going. And then a secondary infection on that, because all the fish were stressed, they got white spot. So now we are battling two things in here. That one with the white on his body, if you ever see that in your fish tank, unfortunately, that fish is done. He is no more. He will not recover from that. I have never seen a fish come back from having that amount of infection on his back. So we are treating them. We are quarantining them. Hopefully, we've got we've not lost that many, maybe 2 or 3 actually, now looking at the shoal. So I'm hoping that I can pull most of them round. They will not be going into this tank with these rare catfish. I've decided that I'm going to put some mature biomedia from another tank into this tank, dose with Optimus and Satus, and then we will put the 2 catfish straight away in there, because in all honesty, it's a mature tank. There's mature wood that's gone in there. The filter was mature and moved over. There's no real reason. I've tested everything. Everything is fine. But these cardinal tetras and everyone that's living in this tank currently with them are essentially a no-go area. We are not touching them. We are treating them now with some anti-parasite. We'll give that 7 days, see how they get on. We'll keep the water clean, and fingers crossed they will all pull round. But yeah, unfortunately, it looks like we're going to lose one more before it gets better. But back to the positive. We've just planted the tank. I'm going to catch out the super whites from the other quarantine tank that's over there, and then we'll take them up and get them introduced. I think that's the next step, hopefully. Yeah, I think so. And here are those little catfish. Now, they are a little bit stroppy at the moment, so they've lost a lot of their sort of darker black markings. But once we get them settled and acclimatized, that will come back in no time at all. I am probably going to go and grab some ram's horn snails in a minute, but not the Colombian ones, just to give us a hand with any uneaten food. Obviously, if there's only going to be 2 fish in there, I've got to think about a cleanup crew. So I think ram's horns, like the standard orangey, red, pinky ram's horns, will be perfect. We may end up looking at a few shrimp down the line, but I don't want these guys to get challenged for food. And this might be the starting of a future breeding colony, so we may look at adding to them. Obviously, we'll have to upgrade the tank, but yeah, so be it. And to be fair, I've just been thinking while getting these out and while catching, does it make me look bad talking about the fish and having problems and things like that? But I think it's honest. Like, as a fish keeper, you can't say that you've never suffered a problem with a fish that has just disappeared or a fish that has sick. It happens to us all. It's just an inevitable part of keeping tiny, tiny little animals with such intricate little bodies and trying to keep them as best as you can. And like I say, it is just one of those things. With the power of YouTube and editing, I was thinking about it. I didn't even have to say. I could have just gone, oh, do you know what? I decided not to put dither fish in, and we're just going to go for the catfish and not mention it whatsoever. Or even if I poured the cardinals in, I could have just left it, caught all of them out, quarantined, or not quarantined the tank, but cleaned the tank, and you would have been none the wiser. Or even maybe I just took my shots a day after them going in, and then they would have looked fine because the infection didn't come out until 3 or 4 days after getting them. Anyway, I've been running it over in my head and thinking about it. It's a bit of a weird one, but it is one of those things that happened. So I could have edited it out, but I feel like it is important to show you all what's going on. Right, we're going to get these in. I haven't got a drip line up here, I don't believe, and I haven't even got my flamingo cup, so I think we're just going to have to use a measuring cup for the minute. So we will go with just a couple of scoops of this water in to start bringing that up. Now, the temperature in this jug is exactly the same as the tank because I've been running them in a quarantine tank that is slightly warmer, like this one. So in theory, it's just the pH and all of the parameters for them to get used to. While they're settling in that, let's go grab some ram's horn snails back to the fish garage. So I'm definitely going to be getting my steps in with this video. So next to our little saltwater aquarium is our marbled betta aquarium, and he is currently, again, lights out because it is early in the morning, or not morning, but lights haven't come on yet. I need a container to put some snails in because there's loads of good ram's horn snails in here. Now, I'm not sure if you can see them all, but there is tons and tons of these little guys in this tank, and I actually sort of in a way overfeed this tank with botanicals and algae wafers so that I get lots of these snails breeding and growing in here, and then I just distribute them around all my aquariums. Like, people see snails as the enemy, but as long as you're not overfeeding your tank, then nothing really should get to plague proportions. Obviously, like you can see in this tank, because I'm feeding things like lots of extra algae wafers, there's tons of snails. So yeah, I'm going to grab another maybe 10 or so out of here, and then we'll take them back up and get them into that tank and acclimatise the last of the catfish. Now, I don't like mixing water from tanks all that often. Sometimes it happens. Sometimes when there's a tank with no problems at all, I will do it. But with my recent escapades, let's call them, with regards to parasites, we are not going to tempt it. They all stuck in the bottom of the tube. Not one of them came out then when I just poured them through. Now, snails being snails, there's already maybe half a dozen that came in on that wood already living in here, so I don't really worry about acclimatising them because they are just so tough. Right, I'm going to leave that in there and pour a little bit more water into these Plecos, catfish, and we're getting there, we're getting there. So letting those snails get out, I thought I would actually show you because I've not actually given you a close-up of these guys. So you can see these are super white, so you can see there's more white than black. Naturally they would have more of a sort of black dominant marking rather than the white. So these have been bred to have that white sort of gene come through, and they are going to look so good. Now I'm going to give them 10 or so more minutes just to acclimatise, and then I will bring you all back when I get them in, because, well, there's no point in you watching me do this. So we are ready to get these little fish in, and also the lights have started turning on around the fish room, so our little cold water minnow tank is waking up. Haberstack's tank hasn't yet woken up, but we'll put another cup of water in there. Now the parameters are the same, pHs are the same as the tank and the jug now, and also the temperature's the same, so we are ready to get them introduced. I do like to take my time on fish like this, especially, as I've already mentioned in the video, when they are gifted to you by a local breeder, because I want to do right by these fish. But weirdly, I've been talking to Wild Shrimp over the last few days, messaging back and forth about next year's event, which is like Fishfete. So if you're in the Bristol area, or even if you're not and you want to travel, Fishfete is a local get-together of breeders, shrimp breeders, fish breeders. There's people selling bits and bobs there, equipment, tanks, you name it, there's all sorts. And Wild Shrimp wants to bring Fishfete bigger and better than ever for 2026. It's been growing every sort of year, and it's been getting better every year. He was nice enough to invite me to the last one, which was amazing, and I met some great people. So I'm really looking forward to the 2026 one. If you want to, go over to the Facebook page, you can follow it. It's a non-profit thing. Loads of money goes to charity that they raise. You know, they've done a raffle for charity last year. So there's no money in it, no one makes anything from it. It's just a great local event that I really like, and I want to try and help more of them. So watch out in the future, because we've got some stuff coming up down south, we've got some stuff coming up north, we've got some stuff coming over towards London, where I'll be travelling around the country trying to do these events. But yeah, go follow Fishfete on Facebook. They are building a website as we speak, which might be live as we say now. Who knows? I don't actually know. But yeah, it's a really cool local event. It's going to be amazing. Anyway, let's get these fish in. I'm going to pull the blind so it's a little bit darker in here, and we might actually be able to see something going in. So I was just netting them out of the bucket, and look at those markings on that front one. Obviously the one in the back is still a little bit grumpy with me, but that front one is looking amazing. Anyway, let's get them into their house. Now I fully expect these little chaps to disappear into the wood and never be seen again, just like so. Oh, there's one still out, but let's give them a bit of time. Oh, hang on, while that one's sat there, look. So you don't buy this fish to have a fish that's sat out the front all the time. This is a proper fish keeper's fish, because you'll put them in there and you might see a tail. I can see a face. That white mark between the wood and the rock, that is actually one moving his way across the back. I don't know if we'll catch a glimpse of him in the cave there. I think he's gone and hunkered down behind there, and this one has sat in that plant and gone, nope, I am a plant, you can't see me. But they do look gorgeous. Let's give them a bit of time to settle down, and let's see if they're out and about when we come back in a few hours' time. And our snails are doing well. Look, we can see our snails, so that's one good thing. Right, we'll see you in a minute. We have given them a fair bit of time, actually, a few hours while I've been messing around downstairs and doing some water changes, and actually they've been more active than I thought they were going to be, out and about and buzzing around. Now that I'm stood in front of the tank though, oh no, there's one on the back wall that you may be able to see. They are actually fairly chilled. To be fair, they have been fairly chilled down in the quarantine tank. Obviously these being locally bred by someone who lives in a house with normal family things, these are probably going to be more used to a busier environment than something that you may pick up from a shop. So it's actually quite cool to chat to local breeders. It's something that I didn't get to do as often in the shop as I wanted to, but I'm definitely enjoying being able to talk to people outside and inside the hobby in different areas and get their impressions on the hobby. It is very, very interesting. Now, there's not much point in feeding them today because they've only just gone in. They've got a good belly full of food from where they've been in the quarantine tank, so I'm not too worried about that. But I do want to stress the fact that a lot of these catfish, as much as they've got a sucker mouth and they look like the bristle noses and those things that eat algae in your tank, they aren't. They're omnivorous. They are, well, these actually have been eating brine shrimp, bloodworm, a little bit of gamma shrimp, and obviously algae tablets as well once in a while. A varied diet is the best thing. You know, the more variety you can give them, the better, especially on these omnivorous species. Go out there. There's some great websites out there. Just have a look at what other people are feeding them and what other people are having success with. The one good thing is if you go to a shop to buy one of these, or you talk to a local breeder, if you can, get them to bring them up to the glass, because you'll soon see a skinny fish that's not being fed very well. You can see the definitions of the rib bones and things, and it looks skinny, whereas these have got nice little plump bellies, doing really, really well. And with the cleanup crew of snails in here, if I overfeed some brine shrimp or some bloodworm, I'm sure the snails will do absolutely fine in polishing all of that up. So a huge thank you to Wild Shrimp for donating me this pair of fish. Obviously, eventually I will hopefully add to their numbers from different sources, so we've got some different bloodlines coming in, and maybe it's a breeding project for the future, but they've got a little ways to go yet, to be honest with you. Obviously, if you do attend Fishfete next year, 2026, crikey, seems like so far away, but it's really not. Hopefully I will see you there, as long as all goes to plan. There are some things in motion that may mean I might not be able to make it, but keep an eye out on their Facebook and on their website once it's running. Probably is running by the time you're watching this video, who knows, but make sure you follow along, because hopefully I will see you there. And, you know, talking to people like Wild Shrimp, and well, it makes what I do worthwhile. Him talking to me about how much he likes the educational side of things, and me trying to teach people how to successfully keep fish and how to, yeah, just do well at fish keeping, and gifting me these fish because of how much he appreciates the hours of scripting and editing and making sure that all the info I've got is right and helping people on the internet. It just makes my job really worthwhile. So a huge thank you, because it just, well, it makes me feel happy, if I'm totally honest. And I suppose let's end it on a happy note. It makes me feel happy. Thank you very much, everyone, for watching. And I'll see you all in the next one. Slightly different one this time, wasn't it? Let me know what else you want to see. Maybe there's some other different things we need to work on. Anyway, bye.